as a first step in fulfilling our responsibility to critically look at colonial histories and their present-day implications, as we pay respect to the keepers of the land and the land itself. We are aware that acknowledgement is not reparation, and land acknowledgement without active steps towards education, support of the Seneca Nation, and sincere efforts to undo colonial legacies means very little. And again, I would encourage you to insert whatever nation is original to the lands and the territory that you are currently residing on. I want to end with saying this land acknowledgement is not meant to be an empty gesture, because without action, land acknowledgements run risk of becoming performance-based and empty calls to action. Yahweh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Really appreciate you bringing that to us this evening. We have participants from all over the United States with us, and thank you. It's a first step, but much work to be done. Okay, we have a packed agenda this evening. Again, thank you all again for being here. We will welcome Dr. Ernest Grant, who will bring our keynote address on racism in nursing. He's the immediate past president of the American Nurses Association, followed by Tommy Hinton on mentoring, Lucia Alfano, mindset and well-being, Dr. Ronaldo Rivera, men in nursing, Tawanda Gaynor, tools for success, and we have an amazing student nurse panel this evening. Before I begin, this program has been approved for 3 continuing nursing education credits. I must read this approval statement. Eta Phi Sorority Incorporated is an approved provider of nursing continuing professional development by the American Nurses Credentialing Center's Commission on Accreditation. Completion of this program will award 3.0 continuing nursing education credits. Criteria for awarding the nursing continuing professional development credits. As an attendee to receive these nursing continuing professional development credits, you must comply with the following. Sign in and be counted virtually by a given name. And so we will run a report at the end out of Zoom. Remain for 90% of the entire presentation. Complete and submit a presentation evaluation with within the designated allotted time. So one of the things that you will receive at the end is an email. And we will also include that link later on in the evening in the chat. You can go right in, complete the evaluation, and it will generate a continuing education certificate. The speakers and the members of the planning committee have declared no conflicts of interest, and this activity has no commercial support or sponsorship. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Ernest Grant. Ernest Grant is the immediate past president of the American Nurses Association, the nation's largest nurses organization representing the interests of the nation's 4.3 million registered nurses. He is the first man to be elected to the office of president of the American Nurses Association in its 27-year history. A distinguished leader, Dr. Grant has more than 30 years of nursing experience and is an internationally recognized burn care and fire safety expert. He also serves as an adjunct faculty for the UNC Chapel Hill School of Nursing, where he works with undergraduate and graduate nursing students in the classroom and clinical settings. For the past 4 years in a row, Dr. Grant has been recognized by Modern Healthcare magazine as one of the 50 influential clinical executives in healthcare and as one of the 100 most influential people in healthcare. In 2002, President George W. Bush presented Dr. Grant with the Nurse of the Year Award for his work in treating burn victims from the World Trade Center site. He was inducted as a fellow into the American Academy of Nursing in 2014. Dr. Grant holds a BSN, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing degree from North Carolina Central University, and a Master's of Science in Nursing and a PhD degrees from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ernest Grant.
Thank you, Dr. Stamps. It's indeed an honor to be here with you all this evening. And if I may make one correction, I believe you said that I'm the first man to be elected to the office of the presidency in the 27-year history of ANA, but ANA has been around for 127 years. So I think if it was 27 years, it wouldn't be that big of a difference, but
Thank you.
127 years makes a
That's huge.
significant difference. So thank you. And I also would like to say hello to my friends and family there in New York. Let me start out here. Walk with me on this scenario. So you're a nursing student and a student of color. Let's say that you are you happen to be a Black nursing student, and your nursing instructor comes up to you and says, how do you comb a Black person's hair? Or how do your people comb their hair? Or how do your people braid their hair? If it is a nursing student who is from a different religion and your nursing instructor came up to you and said, so what do you do with the special garments that you have to wear? How do we, how do we take care of something like that that you may do? Or you have graduated nursing school now, and you're floated to another unit to work, and you walk into the nurses' lounge there, and because of the way you're dressed, someone challenges you and says, "Oh, are you from housekeeping?" "No." "Are you from dietary?" "No." "I'm a nurse. I'm here to help out." "Oh, really? So what school did you graduate from?" These are examples every day that nurses of color face. And I'm not just talking about Black nurses either, just the whole spectrum. And that's just from our nursing colleagues. So imagine what it's like when you walk into a patient's room as well, and suddenly you get, is there anyone else that could provide care for me today? So you know what kind of day you're going to have right at the beginning. So I set these scenarios up as we talk about the work of the National Commission to Address Racism in Nursing and how it was formed, what it has done, and where it will be going. So if you will bear with me for the next few minutes, we'll start on this journey. Now, the background on the Commission to Address Racism in Nursing, actually, let me say it started with one of my 6 goals when I was elected president of ANA and took office in 2019. One of my goals was to increase the minority presence within the nursing profession by advocating for more men and nurses of color to enter the profession. I'm a strong believer that nursing should be reflective of the people that we serve. And that initiative, unfortunately, sort of got sidelined a little bit when a little known virus came to our shores. And also it got sidelined when the murder of George Floyd occurred. So obviously what the country witnessed at that time was a brutal murder, but also it was forced to face the reality that racism is still prevalent. And I wonder how many of us would have even cared about George Floyd's death were it not for the fact that we were stuck at home riding out a pandemic. So either way, the pandemic still shined the light on the inequities in health and healthcare, particularly as it pertained to the Black and Brown communities as well. So following the death of George Floyd, the ANA Board of Directors and our 2020 Membership Assembly, that's ANA's highest governing body, adopted a resolution on racial justice for communities of color. It reaffirmed ANA's position against racism, discrimination, and the Constituent and State Nurses Association and the individual members of section of ANA all ratified that resolution. The resolution pledged to do some of the following: oppose and address all forms of racism and discrimination, to condemn brutality by law enforcement and all acts of violence, to champion the code of ethics for nurses, which calls for us to recognize human dignity regardless of race, culture, creed, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, age, experience, or any other aspects of identifiers. And in partnership with nurses everywhere, we needed to educate, advocate, and collaborate to end systemic racism, particularly within the nursing profession. Now, that was a huge step on the part of the ANA Membership Assembly. And remember, I said this is our highest governing body. But the resolution also steered the ANA Board of Directors to look at bias and racism within the profession of nursing. So thus came about the creation of the Commission to Address Racism in Nursing. as president, I made calls to to three major nursing organizations: the National Association of Hispanic Nurses, the National Black Nurses Association, and the National Coalition of Ethnic and Minority Nurses, and had some discussion with each of their presidents to let's come together and begin to address this issue. Important to note was the fact that this would not be considered ANA's work alone, but the work of all four organizations. I repeatedly stressed that everyone would be considered co-equal leads. And if there's anything that we disagreed upon, then we would either put it in a parking lot for continued discussion to address until we reach consensus and that would be achieved. But it was vitally important that they realize and that the public realize that this was just not ANA's work. ANA would staff it. ANA would would put it up on our website and et cetera. But each of the organizations had equal say in what was done, and that was extremely important to get that across. So, as noted in the previous slide, the first initial meeting of the organization, of the commission, occurred on January 25th of 2021. I think it's essential to note that when this meeting occurred, the number of participating organizations that were invited to the table, and of course, more and more are still being added to this very day. So at the inaugural meeting, though, I did make certain to mention that this was going to be a very challenging initiative, that we all had our issues as it referred to racism, but that it was important to note that ANA itself, and I was just speaking for ANA, would need to address its racist past as well. How the other organizations did that was going to be left up to them, but we could not expect to issue a document or address racism within the profession when others will quickly turn around and say, have you looked in the mirror at at what has happened or what has happened in the past? Just as an FYI, in case you were unaware, it wasn't until the late 1940s that nurses of color could become members of ANA, and it wasn't until the late 1950s that they could actually hold office within ANA. So, and that's not too far, gone from that. So again, you can see that we have had a long history of promoting racism. So once the meeting began, we started our, the biggest and toughest initiative, of course, was to attempt to develop a mission and vision statement. At that particular time, there were 39 nursing organizations that were at the table. And believe me, each one of those organizations had their own idea of a vision and mission statement. So talk about really good collaboration. So after many hours of discussion, we did agree to the mission and vision statement that you see before you. We also discussed the areas in which racism was showing up. The decision was also made to look at 4 areas, that being nursing education, clinical practice, research, and policy. And we determined that the use of ANA's scope and practice standards would be a good example to have that single thread going through each one of those 4 components as we begin to address those issues. So each focus area had also in addition to that, had a subject matter experts that were assigned as a work group or as a task force to work specifically with that. So in other words, education had its subject matter experts. Clinical practice had its subject matter experts, and so on and so forth. And these findings will be addressed later in the foundational report that was agreed upon to be released in May of last year. Now, the goals of the commission are as you see here, and I shall talk about how we implemented those over the past few years in a couple of slides. But again, as I mentioned, using nursing scope and practice standards as a framework or a roadmap made it easier because everyone was, most nurses are used to ANA scope and practice standards. They follow a certain format, so it just made it that much easier to attempt to adopt it that way. The next big hurdle that we had to overcome was the definition of racism. And again, there was a lot of input with that. But I want to point out that the definition that you see before you is considered a nursing definition. As far as we were able to find, no other professional organization has their own definition of racism. So that is something that we should be very, very proud of. And with this definition, what the commission sought to do was to, one, accurately capture the vulnerabilities as felt and experienced by those who had been at the crosshairs of racism. And number two, reveal the character of both historical and present day acts of racism in the nursing profession. So in the end, the commission drew upon these existing definitions to add to them and to create a holistic definition speaking to multiple acts of racism. So as you see here, the commission's definition reflects a cause and effect, if you will, the actions, behaviors, and the thinking of individuals or groups that directly impact individuals or other groups. Biases, prejudices, and ideologies that considered an individual or an identified group of people as superior results in suffering of others and contribute to injustice and inequity as well. So one of the first things that was done in order to have a greater understanding of racism within the profession was to hold listening sessions. These sessions provided a small, and I do mean small, snapshot of the experiences of nurses of color in regards to racism that they had experienced. And it wasn't just Black nurses as well. We had nurses from all ethnicities to participate in these listening sessions. And for many of them, it was like a cathartic episode. People who have been in nursing 30, 40, 50 years, said, finally, I feel like a burden has been lifted off me that I can talk about this. They talked about their experiences. And in particularly, when you see things like this, many Black girls don't make it through nursing education programs. Again, little things like that, actually it served as a lot of nurses would say that it served as a meter for them to prove that person wrong, that I can make it through this program, as opposed to feeling that you're already in a situation where it's already stacked against you, so to speak. So those are the importance of having those listening sessions. Next was, an example of, and we had 5 sessions along with that, I should say, but an example of racism experienced in the work environment as well. You may recall from the scenario that I presented at the beginning of the talk, when a patient or their family member asked, is there anyone else that could take care of them? Or a patient who was, we had stories of nurses of color who served as nursing instructors who had a white student, and the patient would ask the questions of the white student instead of the instructor. And the student, of course, is at a loss because they're feeling like they're in the middle. And so they will again turn to the instructor for answers, or look to them for answers. But the patient was not recognizing the fact that this nurse of color, as an instructor, was or had the qualifications to be a nurse. So those are, again, some of the examples that were faced. And then sometimes even if they ask for someone else to provide care for their family members, they will attempt to continue to go up the chain of command until that may be done. The next initiative, of course, was to explore the impact of racism on health and healing or well-being. And as you can see, it affects both the mental and physical aspects of the individual's being and how they feel about themselves. As you can see there, it made me feel worthless. I had PTSD from the way that I was treated. Microaggression that is displayed as well. Words like, well, you did okay for, like maybe a newbie, or I didn't know they taught that at your school. If you went to a school that the person may not have thought was worthy of producing good quality nurses. All of these are present or may present potential of a hostile work environment that can lead to omission or commissions that could prove to be harmful to the nurse, to the work environment, and most importantly, to the patient. It is the patient and their families who are going to suffer in the end there as well. So once these initiatives were achieved, some of the next work that the commission undertook was to put out aids, information, host virtual workshops, et cetera, that would serve as a resource tool for those wishing to address this issue. You can see from this timeline here how important it was to do surveys and to create a pamphlet of the 10 ways to be an anti-racist. And of course, ways to deal with nurses across the spectrum who either had their head in the sand or who did not believe that racism even existed within the profession. You'd be surprised how many people thought about that, or who would hear the word racist or racism and believe that it strictly applies to a confrontation, if you will, between Black and white nurses, not realizing that it goes across the whole spectrum. They failed to see that other ethnicities or the plight that they may have had to endure as well. So as you can see from the timeline here, the commission's first year was a very busy one, and there was a lot of achievement, and in 22 was looking to be very promising as well. I will say that I encountered quite a number of nurses from different ethnicities who would come up to me and say, thank you, and thank the ANA board and the work that the commission is doing. I remember I was in Oregon in October of 2021, and an Iranian nurse came up to me and she said, I want you to know how proud I am of the work that the commission is doing, because now I don't feel like an other. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, when you go to fill out forms, you only have 3 choices. You're either white, Black, Hispanic, or other. And I have always had to check other because I don't qualify for any of the other ones. But now knowing that, the work that the commission is doing, it's giving me a voice, it's giving me a presence. And, and I really do appreciate the work that, that the commission is doing. So we can see how that is moving along. One of the other challenges that we were facing in our first year as well is to try to, when we're talking about race and racism, how some people want to sweep it under the rug, or perhaps instantly begin to think that, why are you talking about this issue? It obviously it makes them uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable. We have to have those difficult conversations in order to understand. But it's extremely important that we do this. When you have nurses who will say, I'm not a racist, I don't see color when I'm providing care, or when I hear the word racism or racism, believe, as I said, that it's strictly between a Black and white issue. But one of the things that we need to try to stress is that to say that I don't see color, we understand what you're trying to say, but if you don't see color, you're not seeing me as a Black male nurse, or that patient, whatever ethnicity that they may be as well. So yes, we try to give what we think of as culturally competent care, but are we really being culturally competent for that one individual? That we need to specifically, just because I'm a Black male, you don't lump me in with other Black males. You want to find out what it is that makes Ernest Grant uniquely different from all the other, millions of Black males that, that may be out there. That's what we're trying to get to, or the slow walk and get nurses to begin to understand. So you can see some of the hurdles that we had to undertake. Of note also was several national surveys that were conducted as well by the American Nurses Foundation in an attempt to try to understand racism in nursing as well. And as you can see, this particular survey that's referenced here revealed that over 3/4 of the participants who participated in this survey said that racism negatively impacted their professional well-being. Professional well-being can be anything from feeling safe on the job to career advancement or promotion from staff nurse to maybe a leadership position or management position, because a lot of them also said that, you know, part of this was a lot of the microaggressions that they were experiencing was either coming from their colleagues or from their supervisors, you know, itself. So again, that just reemphasizes that, yes, we know that racism is alive and well within the profession, but what can we do as nurses to begin to address it so that we can have a more healthier profession and encourage others to want to come in and join us as well. I think the crowning piece of the work that the commission did was the release of the foundational report in May of 2022, which highlighted racism within those 4 key areas that we had talked about: nursing education, clinical practice, research, and policy. This, I believe, is about a 135-page document, and I would strongly recommend that if you have not had the opportunity to read this document, that you do so. You can go to the ANA's website, nursingworld.org, type in under search, the Commission to Address Racism in Nursing, and this report will come up. This report obviously caused quite a stir as it reflected on the history of racism within the profession. And one of the unique things about this report is that you can either read it, or there's also vignettes that you can read, and it is can be broken down into different sections. So it's not like as though you have to read it all at once. You can read, if you're interested in just reading about racism in nursing education and how that may show up. And part of the ways that may show up is in the textbooks, where it may say, you know, people of color, you know, tolerate pain more than, you know, than someone else. So if that is taught, you know, you may begin to believe that once you, you know, you start your practice. Or in the clinical setting, how, you know, it may be reinforced. You notice how maybe certain people from certain zip codes may be given what we call the wallet test, meaning do you have insurance or not? And if not, then you may not get the full workup that someone who has insurance may have. You know, those are ways to, you know, that is perpetuated, and we as nurses need to be able to make certain that we stand against these type actions, and you know, it starts with you. So again, this report, as I said, is laid out in such a way that you can read all our parts of the chapter. And one thing that you know, is that we didn't issue this report without considering solutions to the problems as well. And solutions are identified, or some potential solutions are identified in this report as well. So readers of the document, again, will be able to explore the recommendations, discuss how to mitigate racism in nursing, and pave an equitable path forward. There are some additional resources. Again, if you would like to, you know, if you have not had the opportunity to look at the report, again, as I said, you can hear from the authors. You can read about how it has its roots, and then also how to mitigate, you know, so that we can continue to pave the way forward. Coming in, well, this is the latter part of 2022 and 2023. Again, one of the things that we're working towards as well is getting what we call allies against racism. This is, you know, having talks with our white nurses and other nurses of color, you know, how to, you know, begin to stand up to racism when you see it. What's, you know, how to find your voice, so to speak. And so this pamphlet here, 10 Ways to be an Anti-Racist in Nursing, is very popular. And again, that's available on the ANA website as well, if you're interested in doing that. The other thing that has come about, we've had several Project Echo on racism in nursing education series. And these series, again, you can get continuing education credits with these as well. They're all designed to be 1 hour in length, and they cover such topics as macro and microaggressions and unconscious bias, imposter syndrome and the burden of representation, nursing code of ethics and the ethical implications of racism, and also courageous conversations with allyships, handling retaliation with Dr. Kenya Baird is leading that discussion, racism in clinical practice as well, and racism in academia, And of course, where do we go from here? All of these are some of those Project Echo series that are there. And I would, again, encourage you to look at that. And as I mentioned, the top 10 ways to be an anti-racist is also another good resource for you to have. If you are with an organization that may be considering or maybe has undertaken to have DEI as an initiative, again, there's some great resources on the ANA website that may be helpful for you as well as you begin this journey. So let me just close, and maybe I think we may have time for questions or so, but you know, to say that as nursing leaders, we must come together at the local, state, and national level and commit to sustainable efforts to address racism and discrimination, police brutality, and the basic human rights. We ourselves as nurses must hold ourselves and our national leaders, both within nursing and within the government, accountable to committing reform and action. So, and remembering the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And let me say that I take seriously the responsibility, not only when I was leading ANA, but even after my tenure has been up now, to continue to make sure that we continue to move towards that. So with that, I think we may have probably about 5 or 10 minutes or so for some questions. If anyone has any, I'll be more than happy to spend a little bit of time and answer those for you.
Dr. Grant, thank you so much. I can never hear this work enough. I always learn something, hear something that enhances my knowledge and understanding.
Yes, I did.
We do.
Yeah, before we address the questions, let me also ask or add, I forgot to mention, you know, okay, so phase 2 of the commission, you know, the main part of the commission's work for the first year or first 2 years was to put out that report and of course, establish that yes, you know, racism does exist within the profession. Now with phase 2, we are now going to be working with individual organizations as they begin, you know, at the you know, the local and state level, as they begin their DEI work. There will be the opportunity, if your organization is doing that, and you probably are looking at, well, what are some of the ways that we can attempt to fund this if we don't have funds or whatever. There will be some small grants available to you know, help get that movement started for you. Perhaps also members of the commission will be willing to perhaps come to either your state annual meeting and perhaps do you know, workshops or things for you as well. So please go to the website and you know, continue to you know, ask those questions or look for opportunities because this is something that ANA is definitely committed to. They weren't just doing it because they had a Black male as president of the organization. Again, we recognize that you know, what happened to George Floyd and other minority individuals, when you look at the inequities in healthcare, the inequities in when it comes to policing, and also as we saw the pandemic shining the light on inequities in healthcare as well in communities of color. But this is something that ANA you know, is firmly behind. So this did not end when my presidency ended. It will continue. And I am proud to say that I was tapped by the new president to continue on both not only the commission, but also ANA's reckoning statement that was issued in June of last year as well. So we will continue that work and extremely delighted to have that. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grant. Are there any questions for Dr. Grant?
I see that Sheila Anthony said she'd love to join the committee. We have actually have sort of downsized the committee, not you know, from what it was, but Sheila, if you are a subject matter expert in one of the 4 topic areas that we had talked about, we are always adding to that list. So for you and anyone else out there who you know, who may be interested in that, Again, submit your name to the commission and say you'd like to be considered as a subject matter expert as well. And we can take it from there.
Deb Elliott, excellent resources, Dr. Grant. Thank you for your genuine conversation and responsibility and commitment to move towards a more accepting and responsible profession. Anyone else?
Another comment that was made, Dr. Grant, was when you made the comment about seeing color, they said, I always said that it's not, I don't see color, that is looking directly past the point. It should be when I walk into a room, I don't see you as less than because of your skin color.
Absolutely.
And that is from Kaylin Jones.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more, Kaylin. So it looks like then that I think I may have 2 minutes left, but let me just say that, again, I would encourage all of you, if you haven't gone to the website, to do that, download the document, either listen to the recordings or read it for yourself. It is some very intense reading, but it speaks to the truth of what we see. And I think that's the first thing, is admitting that we have a problem before we can, move forward. And since I have a couple of minutes left, let me say that you recall that at the beginning of the presentation, when I said that, it's going to be impossible for the commission to come up with talking about addressing racism when we haven't acknowledged our own past behavior, all the organizations that may be present. And so, yes, shortly after the commission got its work going, I put together a small task force within ANA to begin working on ANA's reckoning statement as well. Because again, knowing ANA's history, and for an organization that has been around, well, now for 127 years, to only have had 3 nurses of color as its president, that speaks volumes as well. So our reconciliation statement was adopted by our membership assembly in June, unanimously, passed by acclamation. And the very first thing that we did the next month in July, it turns out the National Black Nurses Association, again, a lot of these minority nursing organizations, they were formed because they were not allowed to hold office in ANA, or they felt that their needs as a minority was not being met. And even though ANA had collaborated with a lot of these organizations over the years, they still did not feel that their specific needs were being met. So in June of last year, we did go to the National Black Nurses Association, and it turns out it was their 50th anniversary, and issued the apology statement for the behavior that had gone on in the past, and are looking at ways that we can move forward. Actually, we're going to be meeting with them, with their board, on the 3rd of February to talk about moving forward. What are some next steps? And one of the things that I stress to them is that this is a journey. It isn't a journey meaning that we don't know where it's going to end, but it also will take both organizations. It's going to take ANA and the National Black Nurses Association, or any of the other minority nursing organizations as well, because we've reached out to probably about 20. And so it isn't just going to be just the work with one minority organization. It's going to be different with each one. There's the Native American Nurses Association, the Pacific Islanders, the Filipino Nurses Association, to cite some examples. So our work with each one of those is going to be different, but we are acknowledging that work needs to be done in those areas, and that shows you how committed we are to achieving this work. And shortly after that, in October, a group also went to Eta Phi, which is actually the oldest Black Nurses Association, and who was celebrating their 90th anniversary at that time, and also issued an apology there. And we began to reach out and work with that organization as well. And we are having discussions with the National Association of Hispanic Nurses, and I believe also discussions with the Philippine Nurses Association as well. So we're getting the work underway for this journey, and we'll be issuing reports periodically as to the progress. And but it is a journey, and to me, as I said, a journey means that this is for the long haul. We don't know when it's going to end. And quite frankly, I don't think it should end. I think it should, we should always, keep going and addressing the issues and find ways where we can collaborate and make things that much better.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grant. There's a few comments I just like to read from Marie Claude. Thank you so much for this amazing work. Racism for minority in nursing is real.
Mm-hmm.
From Gertrude Hutchinson, thank you so much for all this work, so much to share with my students, so much more for for them to learn. Blessings on you and your future work.
Thank you.
From Andrew Harris, Harris, thank you, Dr. Grant, for your continuous work and valued dedication to nursing. Kathleen Brantby, thank you so much for the resources we can access, especially important to me and students becoming nurse educators. From Atia Ellis, for the microaggression, what are the best resources to enlighten peers?
I see that there's a question from, I want to say, Laroshma Hillary. I'm sorry, I know I just desecrated your name, but the question is, how does the ANA plan to involve and support nursing students in its plans for addressing racism in nursing? Well, part of that is, it's not necessarily ANA, but it's the work of the commission. And if you remember, I said that one of the 4 areas that we're looking at is nursing education, and for student nurses, that's where you get it. And that's sort of where you learn that. As the example I gave, if you learn from a textbook that people of color have a higher pain tolerance than than others, that's just wrong. And so the idea behind this, by addressing nursing education and making sure that things are done right, is that people who write textbooks will be held accountable. And subsequently, when you go to write the NCLEX exam as well, because the NCLEX is formed out of what you see in the textbooks, and a lot of times they give you scenarios and things like that. So it will have that trickle down effect, and that what we should be seeing is a change in the way that textbooks are written, and a change in the way the NCLEX exam is done as well, so that students have a much more well-rounded experience and are able to see the real thing, if you will. And subsequently, what you learn as a student, you will take that as a clinical setting and begin to be change agents there, challenging healthcare facilities to look at their policies and procedures. If they say, we have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to discrimination, then how do you enforce it when we know that those zero tolerance policies, sometimes HR intervenes and tries to suppress someone from doing that? Or if they say that, if a person says, I don't want a person of color taking care of me, even though you have a policy that says we don't, do that, but then you turn around and do it, you're sending mixed messages to the, to the nurse and the whole nursing team that, what you have on paper and what is really happening is 2 different things. So how do I know that you may have my back if something were to happen? Again, remember I said those acts of commission or omission that could interfere with both the mental and physical issues that a nurse may experience. Those are things that we don't necessarily think about. We think that, oh, we want to do this because it's what you may appear to be a way to get those positive Press Ganey scores. But what you're actually doing, though, is perpetuating a behavior that needs to be addressed right away.
Dr. Grant, thank you so much. There's one question. For the microaggressions, what are the best resources to enlighten peers?
When I encounter microaggressions, I flip the script and say, why would you say something like that? Or, what are you thinking? Can you explain to me, I'm not quite sure I understand what you're saying. And then that will cause them to think twice the next time they would go to do something like that. And it's not putting them down negatively. You're just, like, if it's almost like as if somebody told a bad joke and you just said, yeah, I don't quite understand, what's the meaning of that? Is essentially what you're trying to say. And then that will get the, usually it catches them off guard, and that will get them to think again the next time. I think also, again, being that ally, like I was talking about, again, I would download that pamphlet there about that, because that's where it starts too. It's going to take that person to find their voice and say, so why is this person of color not getting the same workup that this this other person did? Why are we sending him home to probably come back a few hours later in full cardiac arrest? Meanwhile, you admitted this guy who's gone on to the cath lab to get a stent put in. Why aren't they both treated the same? So and you can just simply do it from, well, for my own education. Can you explain to me? So that you're not really being seen as being pushy, but but to say, let's have this discussion here. And of course, if you get pushback or whatever, then there should be procedures in place at your institution, because again, if they get federal funds, they're not supposed to be practicing discriminatory practices, and and so they're supposed to have policies in place, and you just simply call that out, and be the change that we want people to see. So all it takes is one person speaking up, and then you'd be surprised how others will, that are thinking the exact same thing, and they suddenly find their voice as well.
Thank you again so much, Dr. Grant. Wealth of knowledge, great resources, and we're here to support this work and keep it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next on our agenda is Mrs. Tommy Hinton. She is principal of Brownie Points Leadership Coaching and Development Firm, LLC, based in Detroit, Michigan. Tommy is an accomplished executive coach, bringing diversified nurse and healthcare executive experience to the role, drawing upon 3.5 decades of leadership and 20 years at the C-suite level for 4 health systems in Michigan and New York. She understands the science and language of leadership and has had a successful record as a chief nurse executive and vice president of operations. She has in-depth knowledge, understanding, and insight into what it takes to embrace the challenges, opportunities, and joys of leadership in a dynamic and changing environment. Leadership excellence has been her focus and passion. She is known for an inspirational and practical style, ability to connect, intellectual breadth, and disciplined approach, which produces superior outcomes. She is a leadership coach of passion and influence, applying her transformative cultivation model of inquire, influence, and inspire, and employing a series of timeless practical personal effectiveness strategies to develop high-performing leaders and build high-performing teams, helping leaders maximize organizational value and position them for sustained success. Tommy is also a sought-after speaker, teacher, and workshop presenter, teaching leadership courses and precepting graduate students pursuing a master's in leadership. She has published articles on change management, performance improvement, and leadership effectiveness. Tommy's personal mission is to inspire leaders at all levels to value, seek, and display leadership excellence. Tommy's leadership philosophy is that we begin from a place of belief and possibility thinking. She believes transformation is possible and that all leaders need for success within. She uses an I-cubed model of inquire, influence, and inspire to help leaders along the pathway to authentic leadership. Tommy retired from an executive nurse practice and launched Brownie Points LLC in January of 2021, a service she envisioned because of her passion for leadership, coaching, advising, and mentoring leaders and aspiring leaders of color and desiring to give back. Please look at her website, www.browniepointsleadership.org, for more information. Tommy is a member of the American Nurses Association, Sigma Theta Tau International, Chi Eta Phi Sorority Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. A little fun fact about Tommy is that she loves dancing and baking. They both require rhythm, precision, practice, and patience. She dances in the kitchen and bakes cakes. She has collected over 500 cake recipes for the past 3 decades. Name your cake, common, odd, dump, or exotic, and I can help whip it up, quote unquote. Please join me in welcoming Tommy Hinton.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Stamps. And it's great to be among this wonderful august group and fellowshipping a bit with some of my previous colleagues when I resided in Rochester, New York. And I was a member of FLONE, F-L-O-N-E, now L. And certainly my Chi Eta Phi sorority colleagues. It's wonderful to speak to you today. Imagine this. Someone you admire, respect, look up to, set aside time to meet with you. They share how they accomplish their goals. And over time, they become your greatest cheerleader. They give you feedback, advice. Sounds pretty great, right? That's what we call a mentor. The right mentoring relationship can be a powerful tool for professional growth. It's actually a gift. And that's why I call it the gift of mentorship. I'm going to share my screen, my presentation tonight. Okay. I want to alert you, I was practicing this early. We had a snowstorm here in the Midwest. I'm now in Detroit, Michigan. There's been some unstable internet connections, and I have been praying that I make it through this presentation without any technical difficulties, because I was having some earlier. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? All right. I call it the gift of mentorship because it is something that's given. It's lasting, it's powerful, it benefits the giver and the receiver. It doesn't cost any money, although time is money, but nothing, no tangible coins or dollars. And it's a gift that keeps on giving if done right and given in the right manner. Many of us have had a mentoring story, hopefully in the audience, that went well, or maybe went downhill. Hopefully, many of us have been exposed to mentoring in a manner that was productive for us, that worked out for us, that contributed to your growth and motivated you to want to give back. That's certainly my story, as you heard when Dr. Stamps read the bio. A great mentor was pivotal for me early on in my career. Unfortunately, as I ascended to the C-suite, I longed for one in my later career and was not quite as successful in getting paired with one, and felt somewhat isolated in those lonely years at the top there. Revealing to me just how important having access at whatever level you are and you desire to mentor can be. As you heard, I'm very passionate about leadership, excellence, coaching, mentoring. And so my dual passion has been translated into advising and helping wherever I can, and really taking this message on the road that mentorship is so, so very important. My context tonight with tonight's presentation is really not in the formal sense in terms of structured program that some organizations do have, some mentoring programs, some schools of nursing, hospitals, other healthcare facilities, where there is a matching process where there you get an opportunity to select a mentor or a mentee based on a profile, based on stated goals and interests. And it's wonderful to have access to that type of program. But the average nursing student, the average new nurse, new leader, faculty member, specifically of color, may not have access to that and typically don't have access to those type of programs consistently. So today I'm emphasizing a process that emerges naturally on its own, and that's where the great need exists. So my presentation aims are to just reiterate, we know about mentoring. I heard tonight as I was in some of the breakout sessions that there are formal mentoring programs that exist with some of the sponsors that are here. But to reiterate the foundational principles of mentoring, to discuss the value and benefits of mentoring, particularly to those who least have access, and to ignite interest and motivation to engage in mentoring. So why talk about mentoring? Here are the facts. There are many, 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 many studies that have been done, and I've read a lot of them. 97% of people who have a mentor believe that their mentor has had a significant impact on their development. And 55% think mentoring will help them succeed. 87% of mentors and mentees think their mentoring connections provide them a feeling of empowerment and help them to create a stronger sense of self-confidence. Mentored employees within the context of a formal program have a 5-fold greater chance of promotion than their non-mentored counterparts. And when compared to their peers, mentorers have a 6-fold higher chance of being promoted to a higher job. Great mentors can mold and shape great mentees through structured teaching and sharing experiences. And this is what I like most. The next generation of great leaders are in our presence and need mentors. There are some gaps, however. As I stated earlier, some individuals are unaware of how to initiate and extend themselves to become effective mentors. And effective mentors are lacking, specifically for nurses and leaders of color. There's this thing about the imposter syndrome where you feel that maybe you don't know enough or are not capable enough to be a mentor. Simply not true, simply not true. In fact, that's a sign of true mentor material because there's humility. Mentor-mentee relationships are harder to create when there are differences in social identities. And it can be extremely challenging in a Black-white scenario. There is this natural gap by unconscious biases and an inherent distrust. And as a result, sometimes people of color experience negative mentoring experience, as I did. Disparities do exist. Racial, ethnic, gender similarities lead to a more positive mentoring experience. Okay, let me get this slide moving. Okay, so just to reiterate the definition of mentoring, it's a reciprocal and collaborative relationship, at-will relationship, that most often occurs between someone with a little bit more experience, or senior, junior, teacher, student, or professional, budding, aspiring professional, for the purpose of the mentee's growth, learning, and overall development. It involves support, help, advice, guidance, assistance, and provision of information where necessary. It's a learning relationship, generally focused on long-term career development, the primary purpose of which is to drive personal and/or professional growth, build skills, knowledge, and understanding. Okay. I don't know, that's why it's not moving here. So the value and benefits of mentoring are vast. The end goal is success as defined by the dyad, but it supports talent development, facilitates cultural shifts, it can encourage organizational diversity, enhance learning, drive personal and professional satisfaction, help develop the next generation of leaders, promote employee retention, and rejuvenate the mentor. If you're the mentor, you stand to benefit just as much as the mentee, because there's an opportunity for you to expand your skill set, to validate your leadership skills, your professional skills, to hone some skills. You're going to be communicating, you're going to be providing feedback, you're going to be gaining a fresh perspective from your mentee. So these are things that also can be of benefit to you, whether it's a career-related mentor relationship or a psychosocial work-life balance type of mentor-mentee relationship. So the question is, how do I become a mentor? Or how do I find a mentor? Okay, how do I become a mentor? First of all, find a program and offer your services. Offer to participate. Or if there's no program to be found in your area or your community or your profession, establish one yourself. It doesn't have to be very sophisticated. Or you can enroll in a mentoring network. There are national mentoring networks. You can make yourself available. Make it known that you want to be instrumental in someone's life. Again, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be willing to share your time, experience with a person in need. How do I find a mentor? Make the ask. Create a running list of 5 to 10 people that you admire, that you look up to, that maybe whose job you want in the next 10 years or a job like that. Someone who's demonstrating a particular skill that you admire, or doing some work, a professional work that you're interested in, or would like to become interested in, following in their footsteps. All of these are ways when you're looking for someone to help you on your career path or to help you navigate through certain situations. Find one, connect with them, ask to be mentored. And you know what? If the answer is yes, great. If the person says no, they're not interested, move on to the next person on your list. And if when you're asking to be mentored of a particular person, have your pitch ready, have your elevator pitch ready. You know, it's nothing more impressive than someone coming and say, you know, you're doing great work in this particular area. You're doing great work with homelessness, or you're doing great work with some area of research, or I've watched you lead people, I've watched you communicate, I've watched you whatever. I would like to learn that skill. Would you be willing to mentor me? You've made it. You've developed a successful business. You've ascended to a leadership position. How do you get there? Would you be willing to mentor me? I really want to become a leader like you are. So it is not a sign of weakness to ask. It is one of the wisest things that one can do. Mentoring requires, so when you're talking about this mentoring relationship, it requires conversation. When you're thinking of 2 people in a relationship, conversation with purpose, meaningful conversation, asking questions that'll move the needle. It's goal-oriented. It requires curiosity. Stay open to learning from each other. It requires clarity. It helps you discover things about yourself and experiences maybe you're too close to see. It also allows probing and being open to questions. You know, when in your life have you felt most fulfilled? What would you tell yourself 5 years ago? What would you have told yourself 5 years ago if you knew you were going to be in this spot today? Those kinds of. So it's just a dynamic kind of interaction that takes place between mentor and mentee. And then capacity. There are lots of untapped capacity in individuals. And sometimes being in a mentor-mentee relationship helps to discover it, bring it out. Also capacity to be involved in a relationship. Do you have the time to do it? You know, if you're going to commit. And the commitment through the ups and downs of your experiences, you are very valuable and you have a lot to give. So please consider mentoring. And by all means, a mentoring relationship must have structure. And I look back on the one that I have a negative experience about, a failed relationship, that we didn't have structure. We didn't have enough structure. If I knew then what I know now, I think it might have had a better outcome. Establish goals. Write them down. 42% of individuals are more likely to achieve their goals in a mentoring relationship if they're written down. Set expectations. What's going to be the meeting or interaction frequency? For how long? Who's going to set the agenda? What are you going to work on? In terms of goals, I'm going to increase people skills. I'm going to improve access to opportunities and become a better leader, a better presenter. I need help with emotional intelligence, managing my emotions, navigating difficult situations and environment. Those kinds of things. Have something written down. And then define the communication methods. Is it going to be in person, virtual, email? Who's going to help keep the dates on the calendar? Usually that's the role of the mentee. Who's going to ensure that the meetings occur as you have established them? And then determine evaluation checkpoint. Maybe you decide an end date from the very beginning, maybe you don't. But the last thing you want is for either of you to feel drained, tired, or burnt out in the relationship. If it's ended, it's ended. But you need to also evaluate and see if the goals that you established in the beginning were met. Again, the end goal is productive, rewarding, feeling of growth, feeling of accomplishment. If that's not occurring in the relationship, it has stagnated and it needs a reboot. It needs, perhaps you're mixed matched. Perhaps you need more structure. But in order for it to accomplish what it's intended to accomplish, you need to do that. And also the mentor-mentee relationship, some of the characteristics that are really important that you develop and maintain is trust, honesty, confidentiality, boundaries. It has to be a safe place, no judgment zone, transparent. If you want to get help, you got to put it all out there. Now, it's not a therapy session, right? So some boundaries, and sometimes that enters in, but you got to be careful. You know, it's goal oriented. It's important to share boundaries and respect the standards that have been established. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about our relationships. We're not going to talk about our personal this and that. We're not going to talk about finance. I don't know. Whatever you establish for your boundary. And honesty. If you're a mentor and you see this mentee is not making progress, it's time to probe and ask hard questions. It's time to give feedback, good or bad. If you think there needs to be a restructuring or a refocusing, providing feedback constructively can lead to growth. Okay. I came up with this for myself, that mentorship is witness, being with your mentee, working diligently to engage the mentee as a mentor, investing time, talent, emotion, teaching and telling your strategy. How did you accomplish? What are some of your stories, the good ones and the bad? You're where you are today, but you had some lumps and bumps along the road. So you don't want to appear that, you got it all going on. And they could, teach and tell the mistakes that you made. Also be a good listener. Hear the issues, hear the needs. Don't have already preconceived notions of where you want to take the person. It's actually what that person needs and where that person wants to go. And you're along as a support person, as a trusted advisor, an opportunity to perhaps open some doors or prepare them to walk through some doors that might open. Overcoming barriers, difficulties, opportunities. That's being with, that's witness. And one thing that's really a very, very important failure is when we have a lack of inadequate mentoring or no mentoring, failure to develop a needed support system for people. We close the door of opportunity to grow. We perpetuate this professional isolation that many people of color feel, and we miss opportunities to give back. What do you do when you leave this conference tonight? For us with the experience and successful track record of lifelong learning, get off the sidelines. Someone needs you to be their mentor. Use every avenue available to you to become a mentor or to seek a mentor. Seeking a mentor, again, I repeat, is a great sign of wisdom. And it may be you have more than one mentor, more than one mentee. Regardless, it can be a gift for both mentor and mentee. Becoming a mentor is a great thing. And great things, whether it's small or large doses, can change your life. Give a gift that keeps on giving. A mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself. For organizations, consider developing a program if you don't have one. As individuals, let it be known, offer yourself. If you're seeking a mentor, do the research, look for one. There's one out there available to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is amazing. And we all need mentors, not only at the beginning of our careers, but throughout and as we change roles.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I consider you one of my mentors. I've learned a lot from you over the years. Thank you.
Yes, and likewise, that's right. We learn from each other.
Are there any questions for Tommy tonight? A lot of thank yous. Excellent. Thanks so much.
And the technology lab. Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Well, we will definitely, great tips. Thank you. Thank you. Could you comment on the relationship with resilience? This is from Dr. Brantby.
I think you mean how mentoring helps one become more resilient. I just clarifying. Is that what you mean? Because I'm not quite understanding your statement.
Yes, and
Yeah.
sustains both.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. It really does, because when you are in a situation, one of my mentors said to me, there comes a time when you just need someone to hear you. You just need someone. What did she say? I had a mentor and she said, you just need someone to hear you and to understand and brainstorm survival strategies. And sometimes that advice, someone you can call, helps you make it through those navigate those very challenging situations. They really do.
Thank you.
But they are a lifeline.
Colleen Kowalczyk says, so very inspiring. Thank you for your wisdom. Donna Mendonca, hope I said that right, says, my mentor has given me the needed lifeline within my nursing career professionally and personally. Thank you for sharing that.
So give back, Donna, as you probably already are.
Thank you. Samantha, thank you. Good mentors are really important. Yes.
And we need
Excellent.
more of them. That I want to ignite within you the passion to become one, motivation to commit to mentoring someone.
We need more. Yes, intend to. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tommy. Let's give Tommy a round of applause, and thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing your inspiration and your experiences and getting us to be thinking about not only how we receive, but how we also give back. Thank you. Our next speaker is Lucia Alfano. There she is. Beautiful. Lucia Alfano is assistant professor of nursing at Westchester Community College. Professor Alfano is a nationally recognized nursing advocate. Her focus has been on diversity, nursing education, nursing leadership, mentoring, and building innovative cross-sector partnerships to cultivate a culture of health throughout New York State and the nation. As a founding president of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses, Westchester, she has already partnered with organizations to reach thousands of Hispanic community members and clinicians to address health equity and diversity. In 2015, Lucia was one of the 10 nurse leaders in the United States to receive the National Campaign for Action's Culture of Health Breakthrough Nurse Leader Award. In 2017, she received the Nurse of the Year Award from the National Association of Hispanic Nurses. A contributing author to the book, The Power of 10, Nurse Leaders Address the Profession's 10 Most Pressing Issues, published by Sigma Theta Tau International. Lucia obtained her associate degree in nursing from Queensborough Community College, her baccalaureate degree in nursing from Mercy College, her master's in nursing education from Pace University, and will be completing her doctorate degree at Teachers College, Columbia University this May 2023. Please join me in welcoming Lucia Alfano. You're on mute.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being staying still. I know it's seems like a long time, but we are here, and I have a very exciting and great topic to share with you. And I'm just trying to find it. I'm going to share my screen, right, Deb?
Sorry about that. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah. So here we are. Let me just expand that. And thank you again. So again, my name is Lucia Alfano, and today I'll be speaking on mindset and wellness. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to connect with you. So I am all over social media. on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm even on TikTok. I don't make any videos, but I am on there. My daughter helps me navigate on there. But I'd love for you to find me, follow me, and keep in touch with me after today. So our objectives for today is to define mindset, identify your mindset, and promote wellness. So I thought it'd be very fitting that I introduce myself and really, not an introduction, but really let you know a little bit about my lifespan and my timeline. I made a little timeline here about my life. So I had a very rough beginning in life. Since I was 12 years old, when I failed 6th grade, I never really went back to school until I entered community college at 18 years old. So essentially, I went from 6th grade to community college. In between 12 years old and 18 years old, I was homeless. I was sex trafficked, and I had no parents to help me along those years. I thought it'd be very fitting for me to tell you that I am a sex trafficking survivor, since this is the month of sex trafficking awareness. And it's been quite a journey. And throughout all those years between 12 years old and 18 years old, the way that I came into community college, I believe it was because of my mindset. And it was because I had a vision and I had a goal to be well, to be better, to do better, and a mindset to continue on and strive beyond my difficulties. And so fast forward, like Deb had said, in this May 2023, I will be graduating with my doctorate from Columbia University, thank goodness.
What a journey.
Thank you. And I have a husband, I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, I have health, I'm building my wealth, I have a great career, I have friends and family, and some would say, I have it all. So coming from such a background and really being in a place where I am today really is a testament of mindset. And I think that's why I want to share this and letting you know that, mindset is very, very powerful. So what is mindset, right? What is mindset? So I often read the work of Carol Dweck, especially when it comes to mindset. And she is one of the pioneers that writes on mindset and researches on mindset. And basically mindset has to do with, it says that things happen to you according to what your mind is expecting. So I will say that again, things happen to you according to what your mind is expecting. So what is your mind expecting right now? I ask. Just to give you a little moment to reflect, because I'm going to ask you a poll question in a little bit. And really, Dweck talks about this starting in childhood. In a landmark series of experiments, Dweck and her colleagues found that kids behaved very differently depending on the type of praise they received. They found that personal praise, or praising a child's talents or labeling them as smart, promotes a fixed mindset. It sends a message to a child that they either have an ability or they don't, and that there is nothing they can do to change that. Process praise, on the other hand, emphasizes the effort a person puts in to accomplish a task. It implies their success is due to the effort and the strategy they use, both of which they can control and improve over time. So DeWitt believes that mindset begins in childhood. So I will give you an example because the core of DeWitt's definition of mindset has to do with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. So I'm going to give you some examples of a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset, you're born with certain amount of intelligence and it isn't something that can be changed. Fixed mindset, no matter who you are, there isn't much you can do to improve your basic abilities and personality. Fixed mindset, people either have particular talents or they don't. You can't just acquire talent from things like music, writing, art, or athletics. Those were examples of a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is this: people are capable of changing who they are. Growth mindset, you can learn new things and improve your intelligence. Growth mindset, studying, working hard, and practicing new skills are all ways to develop new talents and abilities. So I ask you, what do you believe you have? Do you believe you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And if we could put the poll up, I'd love to hear from you. And this is anonymous, so nobody's going to know your answer. So according to the examples that I gave, I would love to know if you believe right now you are in a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Number one, do you believe you have a fixed mindset? Number two, do you believe you have a growth mindset? Please take a moment and let us know what you believe you are in terms of your mindset. Do we have some answers coming in?
Yes, we do. We have about 61 of the 54% of the participants responding.
Okay, great. So we'll give you another 10 seconds. And again, a fixed mindset, you're born with a certain amount of intelligence and it isn't something that can be changed. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is studying, working hard, and practicing new skills are all ways to develop new talents and abilities. So we're going to give you 5 more seconds and to get your answer in, and then we're going to see where people believe they are.
Lucia, for there are people who are having trouble with the submit. You have to scroll all the way down, answer both questions, and then submit. Okay, would you like me to stop the poll?
Yes, we would love to see the results.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see, do you believe you have a fixed mindset? Yes, so about 7% of those who answered say yes. And those who believe they have a growth mindset, 97%. Wonderful. So here we're in good company in terms of what Carol DeWitt says. that helps us in terms of mindset and growth and wellness. So let's keep going. Thank you for participating. So what can a growth mindset do for me? So those of us that are already in the growth mindset, really the growth mindset can improve wellness, minimize stress, increase adaptability, and improve interpersonal relationships. Now, if you are in the fixed mindset, it doesn't mean that you can't change. Adults can take steps to ensure that your mindset can change along the way. It's a matter of being patient with yourself and having a mind ready to accept change and accept new ideas and new challenges. That is really what's going to get you to become or to have a growth mindset. Okay, the good news is that if you are willing to learn the technology of changing your mindset and defeating your distorted thoughts, you can have significantly more happiness. Happiness is another thing that can happen with a growth mindset. Who doesn't want more happiness? Like this little cute fellow here who has pure happiness, right? Who doesn't want pure happiness? And the good news is that our brain, it has something called, our brain has the capacity to change with us as long as we are willing. There's the idea of neuroplasticity, and Emily Goldman writes about this. And this is the idea that you can change your mindset by believing in yourself, challenging yourself, and building your brain muscle. In this book, Neuroplasticity, Emily Goldman gives us exercises and challenges and puts our brain to the test and stretches us beyond our limits in order for us to create that growth mindset that would get us to the goals that we want to reach in life. Okay, and knowing that it is a journey is very, very important. You cannot have a fixed mindset and then think you can just automatically get into a growth mindset. Or if you have a growth mindset, but you continue to have challenges in your life where you still have a short fuse, or you still don't believe in yourself, or you still set goals and you don't meet them, or you try to achieve something, you try to progress in your career and you're finding that you're reaching a lot of hurdles and you don't know why. You're trying to lose weight, get healthier, and these things are just not happening. You know, it takes time. It is a journey. Focus on the journey, because each moment and each day towards the growth mindset journey will take time, patience, and work. Okay, it will take work. Some of the work that you can do is, here I put savor each moment. Take a moment to smell the flowers. Take a moment to be alone in your thoughts. Take a moment to really listen to someone else. Take a moment to really have lunch and take a break instead of working 15 hours straight, right? Enjoy the ride, enjoy the difficulties, enjoy the mistakes, the failures that come along the way. I know it's easier, harder said than done, but we must enjoy and grow from them. Give yourself grace that if you don't know everything, that you are supposed to know at your new job, your new career, your new venture, that's okay. Because you know that you are focusing on the journey rather than the daily nuances that can make you feel like you're incapable, or that make you feel that you have no capacity, or that make you feel that perhaps this is not meant to be for you. It is meant to be for you. You just have to give yourself grace and allow yourself to go through the journey as long as it takes you. And it's very individual for each person. What can take me 1 year can take you 6 months. It's all very individual. And starting to convert the negative to the positive, that is negative thoughts, negative words, negative actions. Are you getting upset, or are you cursing and feeling very angry when you're stuck in traffic? Well, flip that. Flip that, as Dr. Ernest Grant said earlier, when somebody comes to him with microaggression, he flips it and says, well, what are you trying to say about that? The same thing with negative thoughts, negative actions, negative feelings. When they come upon you, I always say, well, at least I'm breathing. I think about some of the basic physiological things, but I also think beyond that. I am so blessed and have so much to be grateful for that I can name 100 things that are positive when I get into the negative thoughts. And I'm not saying that I'm always positive and that all I do is think positive, because that is not the truth, and that's not human, and that's not humanly possible. I do fall and I do get into a negative stage, and that's a moment for me to pause and say, no, wait a minute, I will not allow myself to go down that road. It is okay to be stuck in traffic. It is okay that I failed. It is okay that I don't know. It is okay that I have to ask questions. It is okay that I have to or need a mentor in order to succeed through this journey. So embrace challenges. And as I said before, failure is always okay, because that is really when we learn. And also an important factor when building a growth mindset is seeing the value in your journey. When you're fixated on the end result, you miss out on all the things you could be learning along the way. So again, what can a mindset give to you? It can turn stress into a stimulator. It can turn failure into opportunity. It can turn doubt into curiosity. It can turn tragedy into a time of reflection. It can turn a setback to a time where you realize you need to recalibrate. That is what a growth mindset can give you. And guess what? A lot of us on this chat here today, we are nurses, and we are, according to Kelly McGonigal, who writes the book, The Upside of Stress, nurses, we are ahead of the game, because she says that caring for others triggers the biology of courage and creates hope. So caring for others already gives us the opportunity and the know-how of how to create a growth mindset. How beautiful is that, right? So I was going to get into the whole topic of wellness, but I think that most of us are, sick and tired of hearing You have to eat better, you have to exercise better, more, you have to walk more, you have to move more, don't sit for long periods. We know all that, but it comes from the mind. It comes from your mindset. It comes from how you're thinking, how you're processing the information that's coming to you. That's when wellness is really going to come to you. When you begin to develop and grow your growth mindset. If you are already, which it looks like a lot of us are at a growth mindset, it's time for you to continue to grow in your growth mindset in order to establish your wellness goals. So in summary, I want to say that a growth mindset will bring you towards wellness. Believe that you can do better and be better, but do not neglect the lessons learned along the way. It is when we fall that we learn how to heal. It is when we stretch ourselves beyond what we think we are capable of that we reach our greatest potential. Surround yourself around like-minded people who believe in themselves and cheer you on as you succeed. Accept each challenge as it was not the last one you will encounter, and find time to connect with nature and the beauty that surrounds us. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share a little bit about my story and a little bit about mindset, which I believe has been what has allowed me to be successful in my life. Thank you.
Lucia, thank you so much. So inspiring. And thank you for sharing your story. You know, we just don't know the path that many of us have taken, and sharing your story gives us hope and inspiration, and really connects it back to that mindset and the well-being. Thank you. We have a few comments in the chat from Elizabeth. Thank you for, thank you. You are inspiring. Chantel, thank you for sharing your story. Deb, so inspired seeing Lucia, your journey and acknowledgement of the possibilities is encouraging. We need to develop ways we can not only encourage ourselves, but encourage, inspire, and cheer each other on. Thank you. Thank you. Having grace with ourselves and each other is so important, from Atia. And thank you. Thank you all. There's more. Very inspirational from Kathleen and Marie Claude. Colleen, thank you for sharing. Josephine, thank you so much for sharing your story. Amazing presentation. Lucia, thank you so much. And all the best. Congratulations on your doctorate. And I'm sure we'll see you before then, but thank you. Okay, next we have Dr. Ronaldo R. Rivera. Thank you so much. Dr. Rivera is the Director of Nursing Research and Innovation at the corporate level of New York Presbyterian. In his role, he has sparked many innovations in nursing practice. He launched and implemented a professional practice model, an evidence-based practice framework known as the PEACE model, an academic practice partnership that links expert researchers with clinical nurses, and wide dissemination of the practice innovations through publications and presentations nationally and globally. He leads the New York Presbyterian Nurse Residency Program, accredited by ANCC's Commission on Practice Transition Accreditation Programs. Dr. Rivera co-leads the New York City NRP Consortium in collaboration with New York Alliance for Careers in Healthcare, and he has partnered with Vizient and AACN to bring the NRP curriculum to 27 hospitals throughout New York City. Dr. Rivera served many professional organizations. He is the past president of the Philippine Nurses Association of America and established the Philippine Nurses Association Leadership Institute and the Philippine Nurses Association of America's Nurse Leadership Fellowship Program. He served as a board member of the American Organization for Nursing Leadership. He was a member of the advisory board for Duke Johnson & Johnson Nurses Leadership Program and Rockefeller University, Helbram Family for Research Nursing. He is currently a board member of the American Association for Men in Nursing Foundation. He has received numerous awards in recognition of his exemplary and sustained contributions to nursing and healthcare, such as the AONL Nurse Exemplary Leadership and Mentoring Award, Sigma Theta Tau International Nursing Award for Nursing Excellence, Marie Happensteel Langham Award, Columbia University Outstanding Alumni Award, the UERMMC Outstanding Alumni Award, the American Association of Critical Care Nurses Flame of Excellence Award, and the AAMN Lee Cohen Award. He is a co-founder of the New York City Men in Nursing and the Columbia University School of Nursing Men in Nursing. Dr. Rivera is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing and a member of the Fellow Selection Committee 2019 through 2022. Dr. Rivera is a member of the editorial board of Nurse Leader and the official publication of the American Organization for Nursing Leadership. He is also a member of the Research and Scholarship Advisory Committee of Sigma Theta Tau International and the Scientific Committee of the International Council for Nurses. Dr. Rivera received his BSN from the University of East Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center in the Philippines, an MA in Assessment and Measurement Psychology from the Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines, an MA and an EDM in nursing, nursing executive role from Teachers College, Columbia University, New York, and a postmaster's in advanced nursing practice, adult health from New York University, New York, and a doctor of nursing practice from the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing, Case Western Reserve University in Ohio. He does not sleep. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Reynaldo Rivera. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stamps, and good evening to all. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you, Deborah, and the planning committee for inviting me to today's event. I know in the interest of time, it's already 8 p.m. I will shorten my presentation and I will focus really on the men in nursing. And actually, as you said, I love all the stuff that we discussed, from racism in nursing to mentoring to mindset, the growth mindset. And then today I'm talking about the men in nursing. And then later on, you will talk about residency program. And I love that because I did that in New York City. So my objectives for today's discussion are to discuss men in nursing. I'll give a brief overview with the current status and challenges, briefly about men in nursing, discuss the impact of men in nursing on male nurses and students. And so let's start first about men in nursing. Every 2 years, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing conducts the National Nursing Workforce Survey, which provides insights into the many facets of nursing in the United States. I believe the 2022 results will come out sometime in spring of 2023. So while women continue to dominate the nursing industry, right? Male nurses are becoming more common in healthcare facilities. As you can see here, men's participation has become particularly more prominent in the 21st century. Men made up of 2.2 of the nursing workforce in 1960 and 9% in 2020. Although this is an increase, it still results in a significant gender disparity, right? And as later on, I'll discuss about the key drivers of the disparity. Gender stereotyping is one, the assumptions of career path, the lack of awareness of significant roles nurses can play in addition to the bedside. So all racial groups are not the same. The survey indicates a greater propensity for men in nursing based on race. The highest percentage is among Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, while the lowest is among Hispanics. Perhaps this may be culturally related to the perception of the roles of men and women in their respective culture. And that's very important. Male nurses, as you could see here, tend to gravitate towards the DNP degree rather than the PhD degree. It is interesting to note that women occupy 76% of healthcare professions. While men are in a minority in nursing, they're in the majority in other healthcare roles. A metric that highlights gender inequality in healthcare, right? As you could see, there are the men are VP healthcare roles, 58%, senior VP healthcare roles, 69%, and the C-suite healthcare roles is 70%. So why men are choosing roles, right? Before I do that, let me tell you about myself. As you could see, my looks, I'm Filipino, right? And I'm a man one of the men in nursing. My professional life is predicated on the meaning and purpose of life was giving me during my childhood. I lost my parents at a young age. My father died when I was 5, and my mother died when I was 5 years of age, and my dad died when I was 10 years of age. So losing my parents at a young age, it'd be easy to say that I had to immediately step up to life. And the truth be told, I first recognized a lot of women in my life. First recognized the leadership role with my older sister and my aunt, who confronted the hardship of losses and led my suddenly smaller family unit forward, keeping us together and refusing to let our dream burn out. So my aunt emphasized to us the value of strong character, lifelong learning, and the importance of helping others. And the lessons that I learned from the part of my life have continued to ring true in all subsequent parts of my life. They were the lessons of the values of perseverance, intellectual curiosity, resilience, tenacity, and the quiet accelerations that accomplish a triumph. Why am I saying this? Because my next slide is about why men are choosing nursing roles. First, for me, it's I want to go into medicine, but we cannot afford it. So, but definitely it's all about giving back. For me, it's a meaningful and soulful experience. And as you can see here, why are men choosing men nursing role? Because nursing offers the ability to make a difference in people's lives. It's not only medicine who could do that. Nursing. I love nursing because that's what affordable for me during the time. In the Philippines, there are no scholarship. There are very tiny scholars, but you have to pay for your schooling. So, but at any rate, I think I went to the right profession. I fell in love with it. But nursing, men are choosing nursing roles because nursing offers the ability to make a difference in people's lives. Nurses are the frontline workers. And for me, my perception when I came into nursing, because it saved countless lives. Also, nursing degrees no longer limits a person to the bedside. There are many opportunities in diverse areas such as informatics, research, right? Public policy, entrepreneurship, industry. Also, men are attracted to autonomy, and advanced degrees offer a high level of autonomy. Advanced practice, including CRNAs, can perform independent functions and prescribe, right? Contemporary nursing salaries are competitive with other careers, and the 3-day work adds an additional attraction. There are also great benefits, including tuition reimbursement. So what do men bring to nursing? One, promoting diversity in care delivery, matching racial diversity in the community that they do serve, right? It's very important. And we are not there yet. Address the ethic, racial, religious, and cultural needs of patients. For example, men may want to discuss erectile dysfunction with a female, right? Sometimes it's not easy, right? So we need to address that and inspire equality in other professions. There's a lot of course, if I ask you what are the stigma associated to male nurses, I don't know if I have time to put it in the chat. What do you think are the gender stereotyping, if you will? Can you put it in the chat? Okay. I'll tell you, based on the study, there are many research studies on gender stereotyping. Basically, the traditional feminine imaginary of nursing. There's a study of Evans, McPhail, and McWilliams. The image of men nurses as effeminate or homosexuals. The roles, these are studied by McWilliams also, and Allen and Strandberger. Roles stressed by McWilliams et al. And there's also questions of men as caring, compassionate, and gentle. McWilliams et al. And Villeneuve. And the word nurses itself, So these are part of the gender stereotyping. Gender stereotyping is that certain roles for women, and this gender stereotyping must be eroded over time. And the footings of this begin with changing the perception of the profession of nursing from female-oriented to a gender-neutral profession in which men can thrive. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, I will see it in my lifetime, but we are several decades from 1960 to 1920, from 2% to 9%. It's taking a long time. The physician side, right, is predominantly men before, but now it's 50-50%, right? It's different, it changed, right? And the assumptions of career path are limited. Many people think that nursing ends at the bedside, assisting physicians. And also there's a study by Bulow, Kelly, and Shoemaker, and Steele, and LaRocco, that the lack of awareness regarding the opportunities in nursing as a career choice for men. Okay. And perhaps, oops, wait a minute, something happened. And perhaps men in nursing plays a role in overcoming this stigma. The American Association for Men in Nursing may help overcome this stigma. So what is AAMN? AAMN, the American Association for Men in Nursing, is open to any nurse or nursing student, male or female. That's a fun fact about AAMN. It's open for female as well, to provide a framework for nurses as a group to meet, to discuss influence factors which affect men as nurses. AAM mission is to shape the practice, education, research, and leadership for men in nursing and advance men's health. You could see the history here. In 1971, Steve Miller formed a group of like-minded men in Michigan, and the group grew in numbers, as many as 2,300 members from all over the country. And then later on, Luther Chrisman convened the group. Miller decided to go to law school and left the profession. But Luther Chrisman took over, convened the group, and established the National Male Nurses Association. And then later on, it was revitalized. Luther Chrisman was the dean and vice president of nursing, and then also chairman of the board. And then Edward Holleran, everybody knows Ed. Dr. Holleran was elected and changed it to the name of the American Assembly for Men in Nursing. And then in 2014, we changed the American Assembly for Men in Nursing to the American Association for Men in Nursing. So basically, what do we do in AAMN? I was involved with NYU Men in Nursing, the New York City Men in Nursing, and the Columbia School of Nursing Men in Nursing. We do a lot of mentoring programs. Somebody discussed mentoring. That's very important. I think the mentoring maybe will help mentor other male nurses. Actually, there are other participants other than if you're a female and you're new in the profession, we welcome you. We will mentor you as well. But basically, we focus. Basically, as I said, the mission is to shape the practice, education, research, and leadership of men in nursing and advance men's health. But mentoring for us is very important. Also, we go to different high school to really promote men in nursing. We go to high school and actually sometimes mid school to promote nursing, what we do, and we bring stethoscope. We teach them how to use the stethoscope. So it's a tactile kind of thing. It's good for men, right? They love that kind of stuff. So this is what we do for the men in nursing. So I would like to maybe we should talk about the about men in nursing, how you could start men in nursing in your area, in your school, in your institution. And that's the most important thing for us. We'll help you build it. So there is also our website, which is the aamn.org. And the current president is Jason Mott. I used to be on the board of the foundation, but before it was Blake. Blake is the president now. It's Jason Mott. Now, thank you. And what questions do you have for me?
Dr. Rivera, thank you so much. I learned a little bit more about men in nursing. I've always been a fan of men in nursing and learned even more. So thank you for sharing. I didn't understand the history of the organization. That's amazing. And the data. More work to be done.
Okay, questions. What are the any? Let's see.
I just see thank you.
Okay.
We do need to get more chapters established. I don't believe we have one in the Rochester area.
Yeah, I think they're forming. I'm not sure. We have one in Westchester.
Strategies to increase awareness among student nurses.
Yes, that's very important. Actually, nationally, we have the mentoring program nationally as well as locally. How do I call, what implications are there from implicit bias surveys through Harvard? I don't topic, yeah.
Who do I contact in Westchester for the Westchester one?
Email me. My email is rrr9001@nyp.org. Let me just put it there. So this is my email.
Thank you. Such an important topic. Thank you. What was your biggest challenge when trying to become an established male nurse?
People will ask me about, there's Hofstra also. People will ask me, oh, why did you go into nursing? Yeah, why did you not become a doctor? You have to explain. And I said, I love what I do. This is nursing. I also have to tell them that there are other things in nursing because they think only that nursing is at the bedside. You know, you could do there are other options for nursing. So Barbara Callahan, yeah, there's a chapter yes, Michael Greco formed that, I believe. Michael Greco used to be at Columbia and then he went to Hofstra. Okay. Okay, correct. Yes. Anything else? If you want, again, if you want to establish a chapter in your place, please get in touch with me.
And he says, I hope there will be a break in stigma of men in nursing, so that way there can be more of us in the profession.
Absolutely. It takes time. It takes longer for us to be, for us to be really gender neutral profession, you know? Okay.
Dr. Rivera, thank you so much. Very informative.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Next on our agenda is Tawanda Gaynor. So Ms. Tawanda Tolliver Gaynor is the founder and CEO of RN Reach LLC. She is a retired Navy nurse corps officer with over 30 years of nursing, leadership, and education experience. Ms. Gaynor has served in many nursing capacities, including clinical nurse specialist, nurse manager, and nurse educator. She has also served as a nurse residency coordinator at Howard University Hospital, assistant professor, HU Vets for Success counselor, and recruiter at Hampton University, traditional BSN program coordinator at Norfolk State University, and academic success coach and clinical adjunct faculty for both Virginia Commonwealth and South University. Ms. Gaynor is passionate about mentoring and coaching the next generation of nurses. She has presented on the topic of optimal student learning modalities in nursing education and student success. Her research interests include diversifying the nursing workforce and improving the retention rates among minority nursing students. Ms. Gaynor received her Bachelor of Science and her Master of Science from Hampton University, and she is currently pursuing an EDD at the University of Phoenix. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Gaynor.
Thank you, Dr. Stamps, and thank you, everyone. Good evening. Dr. Stamps, I want to personally thank you for inviting me to the table to share this topic via this platform. It's definitely much needed. And I also want to commend the presenters who pretty much laid the foundation, who went before me in regards to racism in nursing, men in nursing, as well as the mindset, because it all kind of falls into my topic. I know that the hour is late, and I know as an educator, we kind of get distracted a little bit when time is before us. So I will not take too much of your time, but I want to be very intentional about sharing some strategies to help with student success. So the topic of my discussion is what's in your toolbox. The purpose is to promote student success amongst the diverse student population, and what I call using a CPR approach. And that CPR approach stands for caring, coaching, looking at the progression of the student, coming up with a plan, accessing the resources, providing remediation, and assessing readiness for practice. In addition, our goal is obviously to retain racial and ethnic minority students who can deliver culturally competent care to a growing diverse patient population. One of the things, obviously, before we get started, we want to, in anything that we do, kind of like starting a race, are we ready? And we want to think about some of the things that we do to prepare. And when I say we, this really is centered for a student focus, but sharing with those that are involved in working with students. Is a student ready? Are they prepared? Are they focused? And most importantly, I'm encouraging them to start with the end in mind. And when I use the term start with the end in mind, I really want the students to think at the very beginning of a nursing program, why are you here? and a great resources to get them familiar with the NCLEX test plan from the beginning. Start using the language, help them to understand how the NCLEX test plan is threaded throughout the curriculum and those kind of things, kind of like a manufacturer guide. This is why you're here, and these are the things that you should achieve while you're in nursing school. And then time management, organizational skills, they have to have the discipline, and again, most importantly, a support system to help them on their journey. And be self-aware, know your limitations, know what it is that you need. All of these things before you start the race. Know your strengths, weakness, etc., and your limitations. Preparation. Do a pulse check mentally and physically. If you just had a great loss, you've experienced trauma, you overcame illness, that might not be the time for you to start nursing school. Put it off maybe a semester. I know some students will have some extenuating circumstances and they try to push through because they have that goal in mind and they really kind of set themselves up for failure. In some examples, maybe they may have had a recent loss, or even some of them have faced some challenges with health, but they try to continue on. So we just need to really have them focus and say, you know, is this the right time? Are you ready? And this is something that you can handle right now. Going back to that mindset presentation we had earlier. In addition, encouraging them to identify available resources and their support system. And one of the things that I tell the students when I meet with them is make sure that you have access to those resources. Keep the emails and the contact phone numbers close by in a binder. So any event that you need to call someone or reach out to someone, you have those resources available, readily available. And then the next step in preparation is, what kind of learner are you? A lot of people will say, I'm a visual learner, but then when I have them do the varklearning.com assessment, we find that they're auditory and sometimes they're multimodal, but just having an understanding right out the gate, how do I learn? And that way you can kind of align the resources to help you be a little more successful. And then identify the strategies for your learning style. And then I also tell the students as well, is not only do you need to know what your learning style is, but you also need to recognize what your teacher's teaching style is as well. And again, now we are on the journey to NCLEX success. So we need to start out with downloading that NCLEX test plan, the detailed NCLEX test plan. The new one just came out for 2023. First year students, I have them downloaded to their computers, to their phones, but I tell them to really make sure that they review it, they understand it. There's examples, there's questions, types. It's broken down into the patient contact information, and I think it's very, very helpful. Obviously, it's foreign at first, but as they matriculate through the curriculum, if they have a good understanding of what's expected of them from the very beginning, I think that leads to success. Understand what the nursing curriculum requirements are. Sadly, I've seen many students get all the way to the end of a program, maybe a semester out, and they find out that there was a class that they were supposed to take. Maybe they were enrolled in the class, they dropped the class, their advisor wasn't aware. And then when we go and look through graduation requirements, this was one of the curriculum requirements that the student just on their own may have dropped. And the course may not be offered for another year, hence that prolongs their graduation. So from the beginning, making sure that they understand what the curriculum requirements are, making sure that they read the student handbook, and also meet regularly with their advisor. And again, the program progression requirements. For example, if the student fails a class, sometimes they often think they can take that class the next semester, when in fact that class may only be offered once a year. And so with that being said, oftentimes when they find out that they have to drop the class and they have to wait a whole year, that can be troublesome as well. So again, making sure they have that information right up front, as well as the clinical agency requirements to include background checks and those kind of things, as well as the requirements for the Board of Nursing for the various states. Now we're ready to start. Make sure that they, one, have a syllabus, make sure that they read it. And along with the course syllabus, I encourage the students to make sure that they have a calendar so that they can identify those important dates, particularly exam dates and those kind of things. And it's really important when the students are trying to not only go to nursing school, but work, take care of families and those kind of things. And I think the best solution is having that calendar and course syllabi in front of you every day. The required textbooks, identify what they are, no trying to get around it. I know you think that some of the students may think they can save dollars by not getting the textbooks, but oftentimes for them to be successful, they will need the required textbooks to succeed in nursing school. One of the other challenges I think that many of the students have is just really knowing how to navigate the standardized resources. And what I mean by that is the making sure they have their login information, make sure they attend the orientation, make sure they understand how the products support the curriculum and the content that they're receiving in their various courses, and not waiting until the last minute to do the assignments because they're actually created to follow the content for their particular courses. So sometimes the students will not do the ATI or HESI assignments, quizzes, case studies, and those kind of things until the end. But in reality, those things were created to help them gain a better understanding of the information and master the content in their particular courses. Peer support groups, I can't emphasize that enough. Student Nurses Association, Chi Eta Phi, and upperclassmen. That has been probably one of the greatest help, I think, in regards to students who just don't know starting out. And when they reach out to the various groups or the upperclassmen come in and kind of tell them what to expect, students tend to do a lot better, and you can kind of see the confidence building over time, particularly after they engage and interact with these various groups mentioned. And then the remediation faculty, early on, identify who the remediation faculty or remediation coaches are, and make sure that they have the information, they attend the sessions that the individuals may provide within the School of Nursing. Go back. Okay. Then here we're all set. Our e-learning textbooks. A lot of times the students will download their textbooks, but faculty will say, put your computer away, and we have to kind of take some time out of lecture to explain. Everybody doesn't have the hard textbooks. Many use the e-learning textbooks. So it's real important to make sure that everyone is aware that there are different types of learners, and that some will have the hard textbook and some will use the e-learning textbook. But then again, in addition to that, if there's coursework that's done in the classroom, oftentimes we'll say no computers, but then if their resources are all on their computers, we just need to be kind of flexible in regards to that. Achieve, I put that there in regards to getting started, having the resources. Many of the admissions policies require an admission test. And oftentimes, if the student does not meet that admission test requirement, they may be able to retake it, or they may be able to remediate and those kind of things. But each step along the way, students will be required to achieve the admissions test, maybe the fundamentals, content, ATI, standardized testing benchmark, and before they can move on to maybe med-surg. It's important for students to understand what the benchmark is for the admissions test to get into nursing school, as well as the benchmarks to progress through the various courses. For example, if they're required to get a 78 on the nursing fundamental content exam, know that ahead of time so that you can kind of set your goal, set your benchmark, and seek help when it's needed. In addition to that, clinical skills and competencies. Sometimes students have difficulty in clinical or mastering the competencies. We need to encourage the students to seek help. Oftentimes they can go for additional lab time. And that's not a bad thing if you need to remediate in the lab, because obviously we're teaching them to take care of patients, and we want to make sure that they are able to master those skills. And sometimes we probably need a formal process in place for those students who may have some challenges in doing so in regards to putting things together, critical thinking and clinical judgment. And another way that kind of can help facilitate ensuring that they meet the competencies or case studies, videos, again, addressing the various types of learners. And we always encourage from the very beginning for the students to practice NCLEX style practice questions. And I can't emphasize enough remediation. And they're all set to go. Basically, as you're progressing through the program, read, review, remediate, and reevaluate. And one of the things that I'd like to emphasize here, I think that is very, very important while students are progressing throughout the curriculum. It's really, really important to look at the data, look at how they're performing early on, provide remediation, review what's going on, look at the trends, remediate and reevaluate. And if you do that early and often, they will get to the end of the nursing program and basically either fail out of the program or not be prepared for boards. So data basically has meaning, it tells a story. Oftentimes, for example, if you see someone struggling in a med-surg area, if you take a look at how they did in fundamentals, if you take a look at how they did in pharmacology early, you can kind of identify some of the challenges that they've had, remediate using your case studies, your videos, going into simulation. And often when you do that, you can see them turn around. Some students, as we know, may require a little bit more time because everyone enters the race of nursing school at different levels and different capacities with different experiences. But I think that we can retain the students if we basically prepare them early, really be engaged and monitor them, each individuals, as far as their progress. Even if they do well on a test, I always tell the students to go for test review, because obviously there's some content that you didn't understand. And if you don't look at the content, if you don't see your test and see what you missed, then when you see that content again, you probably will have the same issues of not mastering that content. So I think it's very, very important for the students to remediate on what it is that they've missed throughout the curriculum. I always tell them before you move forward, always go back. For example, if fundamentals is over, you're moving to med-surg. I always tell them on a break before you start the semester, take a look at the fundamentals course. Usually as an instructor, for me, that first test in med-surg, most of the content will probably be fundamentals, because I want to make sure that they're bringing that content along as it's threaded through. And then when you look at the data, oftentimes for those students who aren't doing very well, when you go back, you can see that they've struggled in the basic fundamental courses. So if you identify early again and remediate, we can have them move forward. As far as teachers, faculties, is how can they help? You know, academic success coach is a great role. Many schools are starting to have those positions, and the coach is responsible for ensuring the students receive persistent, proactive, individualized mentoring, academic coaching, and support through their time enrolled in nursing school. And it's kind of when we talked about mentorship and mindset and well-being and those kind of things, that's the role of the academic coach, outside of worrying about creating exams. And really, it's kind of like a cheerleader, but I think I've seen great success when students are engaged with the academic success coach. And the role also is to help identify and utilize their strengths, navigate through the journey of nursing school, and help the learners accomplish their academic goals. This is kind of just like a template in regards to from a visual standpoint of how a student success plan would look during a pre-nursing learning style assessment, study skills, test taking, academic support with advising, tutoring, remediation, social support to include counseling, mentoring, success coach, peer-to-peer mentoring. Financial resources obviously is a big stressor, particularly during this time, and just helping the students find out what scholarships, resources, internships, externships are available so that they don't have to work as much and they can focus on their study. And then again, NCLEX readiness prep, standardized test analysis, looking at the gaps and providing remediation is a great recipe for success. We can all probably reflect on some of our challenges in nursing schools. This is just a list that was put out by HRSA Health Workforce in 2016. And I think it still exists today. Anxiety, number one. I've seen an increased number of students who are very, very anxious. Particularly during the post-pandemic era. Requirements outside of the academic workload, depression, study skills, competing demands, emotional instabilities, pre-chronic stress, and student self-concept of academic ability. And I think I heard earlier about the imposter syndrome. I put this here. I think sometimes we focus on students' ability to learn, but we fail to address some of these issues. So I think it's very, very important to seek out the counseling center, seek out mental health services for these individuals, at least let them know that they are available. Again, some of the students will not want to share how they're feeling with the instructor, but I think that having the resources to the counseling center and to mental health services, particularly in today's era, would be very beneficial. The other thing I wanted to go back and talk a little bit more is about learning styles and education. Students' learning styles are linked to their performance in the different learning environments, as we know, and perception of the learning material and format of the presentation is influenced by their style and preference. Increasing student awareness of their learning style preference, then providing them with strategies to learn in both the preferred and non-preferred environments will help them learn. And student learning style versus educator styles, as I mentioned before. The individual success plan is very, very important in regards to having resources available. Lastly, the Learning and Study Strategies Inventory is a great tool. If you have not heard of it, please take a look at it. It's the individual assessment. It's an inventory that asks questions about current study habits. I think it's a very great tool because it assesses the student's skill, their ability to process information, their will, attitude, motivation, and anxiety. Self-regulation that assesses their concentration, time management, and it serves as a diagnostic and prescriptive tool. And I think it's very, very helpful. Some tools for faculty to look at in regards to data to see how the students are progressing through the program, the standardized test and the content test data, the Blue Mountain report, practice analysis report, and then encourage and monitor use of the products that are available for them. And real quick, I just want to, one of my students who I've mentored, had the opportunity to mentor, she kind of had some challenges early on in nursing school. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today because she's interviewing at Duke University for admission into their PhD program. But Jolie was she graduated in 2019 from Hampton University, and she's currently a psychiatric mental health practitioner. She just graduated last year. But one of the things that she said during undergraduate, while I was at Hampton, I learned many things, but there are three things to emphasize. Plan, plan, plan. And I'll just read what's in bold. Do not be afraid to seek or ask questions. Speak your success into existence. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And first and foremost, she basically gave honor to her mom in regards to encouraging her to get through nursing school. She was challenged. She had some challenges in nursing school, and there was some doubt, and she talked about that. I formed a relationship with her. It was almost kind of like I just connected to her. She didn't like taking the standardized test. And one of the things that she said is don't be ashamed to ask for help. A lot of times students, it's a pride thing and that's why they don't ask for help until it's too late. And I'm sorry I had to rush through the presentation due to time, but I just wanted to leave some of these tools that I think I have seen over the past 16 years work. Know the students individually. All students are different. Understand that students learn different. Many students are kinesthetic learners. And with the anticipation of the new gen NCLEX test coming, we need to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're confident, and that we support the learners. And I thank you so much for your time and this opportunity to present to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gaynor. Amazing information, and pearls for not only the students to be aware for success, but also for the faculty to be able to help the students as well. So amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Great information. Awesome, insightful, and so sensitive to needs of learners and educators. Great resources. Glad we're recording for further reference.
Thank you.
So it's a pleasure to bring our future nurses that are currently on their path and journey for higher education and other opportunities. But tonight I'd like to bring to you Eddie Wu, who is currently a BSN RN, ambulatory board certified nurse at Downstate Health Sciences University, pursuing his master's. Sasha Persad, who's an RN BSN at SUNY Downstate, pursuing her master's in education. Julian Mohammed, who's currently a certified pharmacy tech at New York University Roy Myers College of Nursing, pursuing a degree BSN in nursing. Nikisha Mortimer, currently an LPN at the Columbia University School of Nursing, pursuing her bachelor's degree in nursing. Lorshima Hillary, she's at the Harriet Rothkroft Hillbrom School of Nursing, Long Island University, pursuing her degree in nursing. Leisha Miners is currently a master's prepared BSN certified registered nurse, pursuing her doctorate at Teachers College, Columbia University. And Samira Ahmed, who's pursuing her degree in nursing at NYU Roy Myers College. Thank you all for being here. I am just so proud that you're all here, and can't wait to have this great discussion tonight. So let's start out with just asking just a couple questions. Can you tell us why you chose to be a nurse?
Hi, my name is Aisha Miners. Why I chose to become a nurse was after my grandfather in 1997 was diagnosed with a melanoma, and he received inpatient care at home. And I realized the care that was provided from the nurse and all the dimensions that that nurse was able to provide for our family. And it was then that I realized that nursing was for me.
Nikisha.
Yes.
Awesome.
So early motherhood and parenting a child with special needs really shaped my view of the nursing profession. I was a teen mom, and literally one day my mother packed me up in the car and showed me to an LPN school and basically instructed me to enroll as a student. That decision really changed the trajectory of my life. Becoming an LPN, it allowed me to provide for my son as a single parent. And it also gave me the confidence to advocate for him. He was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at the age of 4, and he was nonverbal up until about 6. So I had to be his voice for quite some time. But as I grew older, like my views changed and I matured, and my understanding of a nurse and a nurse's role evolved as well. So nurses, they wear many hats. They advocate for their patients and they're educators, and they're usually are emotional supporters of their patients. So ultimately, I was very inspired by many of the speakers here tonight, and there's like limitless opportunities for career and growth in the nursing profession. And that's really one of the reasons why I decided to go back to school and further my education, just because I want to like instill the idea of limitless capabilities in my patients as well. It's just very rewarding to support others on their growth and their journey, and just watching the growth and transformation is rewarding.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring.
So my first degree was actually a BSN in biology, with the intention to go to grad school to get a master's in public health. While volunteering in Jacobi Medical Center to get my volunteer hours to apply for grad school, I had a downtime, and one of the nurses asked me if I wanted to shadow her. So while shadowing the nurse, I kind of fell in love with nursing. And just to make sure that it was a career that I could survive in, I applied to be a nurse attendant. And then I realized that I really, really love nursing. So I stuck with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sasha.
I was initially on the pre-med track, but after taking some classes like organic chemistry and other stuff, I decided that wasn't for me. So I worked as a pharmacy technician during the pandemic. And when I was certified, I started giving vaccines and vaccine clinics, and everyone kept asking me, "Oh, are you a nurse? Are you a nurse?" And it kind of just stuck with me. So I applied to nursing school. Ever since then, I believe I've made the right decision. Even today in class for community nursing, there's just so many different aspects of nursing, like home health and psych nursing and community nursing and ED nursing. It's just, there's so many different hats, like Nikisha was saying. I just can't even pick one. I kind of want to do it all, honestly, and nursing is just the perfect career for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Nursing school is not easy. It's one of the toughest programs that you'll go through, and regardless of where you start, LPN, registered nurse, associates, doctorate, masters, bachelors, it's not easy. Can you share with us what challenges you may have experienced and how you resolve those?
Challenges that I've experienced right now in the ambulatory care. And it revolves in all departments of nursing, is the understaffing ratio. I am the only nurse in the Department of Pediatric Endocrinology at a Northwell Health Physician Partners practice in Brooklyn. And we deal with hundreds and hundreds of patients where it's tough to meet the demands of the patients along with their families. So how I manage it is prioritization, time management, and being organized. Doing the best of my ability to help out, especially when this, for instance, in this department right now, we're dealing with a growth hormone shortage, and it's starting to, well, applying for like prior authorizations or any type of insurance work, it's starting to catch up to different other type of class of medications, which hopefully there will be some resolvement there. But understaffing is one of the main concerns for me.
So as a student, I feel like a lot of students couldn't relate to me when I say this, but I feel like a challenge is trying to balance it all, trying to find that equilibrium amongst everything that you have going on in your life. We all know that nursing school is super rigorous, on top of those of us who have to work, the people who have families, who are parents. And so trying to balance it all can really be a lot. And so what I found is that sometimes as a nursing student, we can lack self-compassion for ourselves. Like the speaker earlier, Lucia had said, you have to have grace for yourself. And so it's very important to have a growth mindset as a nursing student, so that you're able to get yourself out of situations much easier. And so another thing is that we have to appreciate the progress and where we are in our nursing school. So whether you're in your first semester or your third semester or your last semester, just appreciating the fact that you got to where you are and that took something is something that's very important. And so what I have found that helps me with trying to balance it all is delegating tasks when I can and asking for help and asking those questions in class, even though you might be in a lecture hall with 100 students and you're nervous, but asking those questions and asking for help is super, super important in nursing school.
Thank you, LaRusha.
So I actually recently graduated from NYU nursing school. My official date was actually this Monday. And I'm so grateful that I made it through all of that. Thank you all. Because the beginning of my nursing school journey was very, very challenging. I started it, very much like during COVID. I had like health issues. I ran into just mental issues, and I just kept on pushing and pushing to, get through my exams. But something in life kept on telling me, just take a break, girl, like take a semester off. And I wouldn't listen to that. I got into issues with my professors. I eventually, because I wanted to push through this journey, I did end up failing a class, which made me take a break from school for just a couple of months. I came back to school refreshed, and that was one of the most challenging parts of my life. And the professor that actually recommended me for this conference, it was a whole roundabout situation at the end of my semester when he came up to me and recommended it, because there was a point in my journey where I actually had an issue with him too. And I told him about this, and he told me he had issues in nursing school. And I guess the way I faced these challenges that I had was surrounding myself with, friends and family that understood, finally having the courage to reach out to my professors, and also realizing that although I look up to them, that we've all had challenges, and him telling me that he's had issues too in nursing school, and realizing that we're all kind of same, and they're all kind of, I know that, Eddie, you've also had issues like as a nurse, and life is going to continuously give us issues, even when I finally become a nurse in the next couple of months. But realizing that we're all together and finding support within this community, I think that's what's helped me.
Thank you so much, Samira. Thank you.
I also had a few challenges in my undergrad study. Currently, I'm a doctoral candidate, but it took believing in myself and realizing that it's okay, that failure doesn't mean it's not a death sentence. So in undergraduate, I had to take the NCLEX 3 times, and I felt ashamed. I felt defeated. And I always tell my students this story towards the end of the semester, the fact that I pushed and I had to hear the voices of the people saying, "You're sure nursing's for you?" But if I gave up on myself, I would have never reached and be in the position that I'm at, and to also be a mentor to students who may not have passed the first time, and to tell them that the test, yes, it's a high stakes exam. However, it will not define who you are. You have to push through it, push past it, and give yourself grace, because what's meant to be will be. Your start will not determine your end. So how I overcame that challenge was believing in myself, having supportive family members, friends, mentors who are currently on the line to be able to say, yes, you can continue to journey on. And then after you have gotten what you need, then it's to pass it and pay it forward. Climb and lift.
Thank you. I'm so inspired by all of you. This is why I love students, because the journey is not straight and uneventful, but the perseverance and the determination are amazing. What do you do for wellness?
I travel. Travels in the spa.
Awesome. Self-care. Absolutely.
I joined the gym so that every Wednesday and Friday I go swimming. And every last Friday of the month, I meet up with a group of friends and we laugh, vent, cry if we need to. It's just like pour back into each other, lean on each other in whichever way we need. So support system.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I can share. It's also very hard to prioritize ourselves during nursing school. So prior to my program, I used to get my nails done and go to the spa, and I love traveling as well, but I can no longer do that. I really started like fostering my peer relationships and friendships. It feels really good to spend time with my friends because my time is really limited, and it plays a major role in my wellness, and it helps me to keep pushing forward. I made a lot of lifelong friends in nursing school as well. Like we were all bonding through this experience, and we're going through the same thing. We study together, and we really help one another when we need support. So it's really helpful to have the support system in place, and you can't make it through nursing school alone. So I'm working on my relationships and friendships.
Thank you, Nikisha.
Like Nikisha was saying, being in nursing school and having like hobbies and taking care of yourself kind of don't go together sometimes time-wise. But I used to do musical theater a lot. I'm trying to get back into it more since this is my last semester. I have a little more time. I also like to read a lot. Also just taking walks with my dogs. I don't get to do it that often anymore, but I feel just taking in everything, taking a moment just really relaxes me. And also turning off my email notifications during the weekend really helps. I know sometimes professors don't like students emailing them on the weekend, but when it happens the other way around, it doesn't help either. So yeah.
Awesome. I have to figure out how to turn my email notifications off. It's a great idea.
I guess I'll share some of the things that I do for self-care. So some of the things that I like to do is I like cooking. So I'm vegan, and so I just cook a bunch of vegan food for my food page on Instagram. And honestly, I just love sharing funny videos with my friends, and we'll just laugh over that. And sometimes that's just like the best medicine for me. And like when things become super, super overwhelming, for me personally, just like praying is just one of the best things for me that helps a lot. So those are some of the things that I do.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have just a few minutes left. Is there anything you would like to hear from the audience? A question that you may have for the audience?
I have a question.
Yes.
Out of all the programs from this seminar, what captivates you all the most, and how will you give back into the nursing profession?
Excellent question. Who would like to respond? I have my own opinion and bias. But anyone from the audience like to respond?
I have been really quiet, Dr. Stamps. I have no problem responding to that.
Awesome. Same here too.
Eddie, that was you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the presentation from tonight that stood out, I'm Dr. Akia Blandon. I am your tech person behind the scenes, and I came on camera just for that question, Eddie. I think the presentation that stood out to me the most was Dr. Grant's. As a woman of color and a young woman of color who has been in leadership since I could walk probably, I have literally been told you should be seen and not heard. I have been the first person of color in many rooms throughout New York City. And so what I do to give back is I continue to push the envelope. I continue to show up in spaces that I'm told I shouldn't be. I continue to make sure I'm dressed not for where I am, but for where I'm going. So when you see my name presented, alphabet soup shall follow me. So that's one of the things that I do to ensure that this horrible thing called racism, it must end, because I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm gonna make a difference. Hope that answered you, Eddie.
Yes, Dr. Blandon, thank you so much.
And Eddie, that was a great question. And, you know, I teach undergraduate nursing students. And I started out the first day of class saying, we have a little United Nations here. And we're all learning from each other. You know, I cannot change what was past. I'm aggrieved by it sorely. I can't change it, but I can work with my students. I said the change happens with this generation. Nurses are change agents. And for a profession that has been so good to me, and through ups and downs, good and bads, I am compelled to give back. And when the IOM report came back out the first, in 2010, I said, I got to go and get my doctorate. I have to give back. And I did. And that's what motivates me, is to be able to, in any way that I can, inspire my students to be a change agent, regardless of complexion. And in no way am I minimizing, because Deb knows, she knows me, and she knows that I'm passionate about this, and I'm passionate about nursing. And I am passionate that, again, as Ronaldo said, that we're become a gender neutral profession. And so that's how I give back. It starts with one and grows from there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hutchinson.
Good evening. I'm just inspired by the student nurses who have spoken out with such compassion, and hearing that they're in nursing for the right reason. I didn't hear one say, those things that we normally hear in nursing and so on. And certainly Dr. Grant's ANA Committee on Racism was also inspiring, as well as the gift of mentorship. But I want to just leave this, when you're in nursing, if you're totally committed and have passion for it, you never leave it. I'm retired and have been retired for a number of years. And Dr. Stamps and probably Dr. Blandon can tell you that I stay productive, not busy, productive in doing nursing things in the community, on boards, on all sorts of things. And you just never give it up until you're horizontal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Easter. We have some things in the chat that I think are really important to share tonight. So first and foremost, and I hope I say your name right, Olyanka, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are. You're amongst friends and colleagues. We're here to support one another and build each other up, not to do anything else but support you.
I just wanted to say to Eddie and I guess on what you're doing to make things better. I know downstate doesn't, I'm currently a RN FNP BC, but I'm not really practicing as an NP right now. I work in a NICU currently in Brooklyn, and I'm also a DNP student at SUNY Downstate. So I was going to say that although Downstate doesn't have the mental health program, I do know that in our community, there's a whole lot of, I don't want to say mental problems, but do know people do go through a lot of things and they bottle everything up. So I just wanted to say what I'm doing to help is trying to get my, obtain a degree as a mental health practitioner so that I can help the community in that aspect. But that's a whole nother story. Like I said, Downstate doesn't have that program. And I know a lot of people don't really touch on it, but I just wanted to say that, yeah, that's my little way of giving back. And I know that I am shy, so I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that's my little take that I just wanted to put, out there. it is another way to help people like unwind. Because yes, I do love to travel as well, but some people can't afford it. They don't have time. They're too busy. So it's, a way that if people have someone to talk to, just to listen to them, that would definitely help them out, I believe. So, okay.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A lot of great conversation in the chat. You're amazing. Yes to traveling for relaxation. Great questions, Eddie. Agreed. Thank you, Akia. Amen. Setting precedents. Yes. Great mindset. Love it. Thank you all. Thank you to all of you. Your journeys are honest, thought-provoking, and in many ways painfully telling that we need to not only listen, but to take to heart. I have to really take an eclectic approach and will commit to considering on takeaway message from each of the presentations and act on it. Perhaps start a chapter of Men in Nursing at our College of Nursing and mindset awareness and curricula, incorporate the ANA resources into all programs, etc. Thank you for the opportunity to consider this, Eddie. I want to say something, but I'm shy, and thank you, Olayinka, for speaking up. We love you and keep it up. You just opened the door. You'll be doing it all the time now. Remember why. Be the change you want to see. Well said, Trudy. You got this. We love to hear your thoughts, and you did share. Thank you. I am so proud of you. I am so proud that you all are our next generation of nurses. Dr. Bryant. Agreed, this is a place of love and compassion. Please fill out your evaluation, your C&E credits. There's a link in the chat, and we will also send out an email following tonight's event so that you all can complete your evaluations and get your C&E credit. I want to thank our panelists. All the best to all of you. You are our future. I love and learn from students all the time, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. All the best. Don't give up. Look forward, and you'll come back again, and you'll be presenters with us. We're going to do this again. So thank you. Keep up the great work. I want to thank all of our presenters tonight, Dr. Grant, Mrs. Hinton, Ms. Alfano, Dr. Ronaldo Rivera, Ms. Gaynor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Blandon, for all your tech support. Thank you to our sponsors. Again, we couldn't have done this without you. Please have a good night, and we'll see you again next year. Talk soon. Thank you.